And I want to share with you this story. If I can share this here, let's boom, there we go. Let me do that. Let's talk about this guy. This, as many of you probably know, is Joe Kennedy, and he's in the news tonight for a very important reason. And if you don't remember who this guy was, I'll give you a quick recap. But basically, last year, there was a whole Supreme Court case, Kennedy versus Bremerton. Well, that's Joe Kennedy right there. And we'll get into the details of what the Supreme Court did in a second. But basically, there was a case that went to the Supreme Court. This guy won the case. And tonight is what that case was all about. So this guy's in the news for reasons. And we're going to talk about what those reasons are. But let me give you the recap if you don't remember who this guy is. Like, this guy, Joe Kennedy, in 2015, he was a high school football coach in Bremerton, Washington. And he basically said after the game, I want to just do a quiet little prayer at the 50-yard line after games because that's my religion. And of course, it's never about private prayer. It's not like Jesus needs you to be at the 50-yard line. You could just do it in your head if you wanted to. I'm sure Jesus in your mind can hear you. But no, this guy, it wasn't enough to just pray to God. He had to do it for the performance. He needed everyone to watch him pray at the 50-yard line after games because it's not like the kids matter at that point. So he did this. And at some point, the school's like, you can't do that. You're on the clock. Like, if you're a football coach, once the final whistle blows, your job is not over yet. Like, get to the locker room, have a pep talk with some of these kids or something. But anyway, this is what he did. And the school warned him about doing that. And eventually they said, we're going to put you on paid leave. And then he's like, well, I'm not going to sign my contract to come back next year. And the school's like, okay, we don't care. And then he's like, why did you fire me? And they're like, we didn't fire you. But anyway, he pretended he got fired for praying at the 50-yard line for his quiet prayers that were never actually quiet. Because at some point when he started doing this, other like team members started joining in. Then the other team members from the opposing team started joining in. And he's like, well, I can't stop that. I have nothing to do with that. It's like, yeah, you kind of do. You're at the 50-yard line after games. You're totally doing this so everyone joins you. It didn't matter to him that when a coach prays on the field, there's a coercive element to it. And some kids did attest to this later on. They said, I kind of felt compelled to join in because if I don't join in the prayer, coach might look at me in a different way. Coach might think I'm not a team player. That might affect how much playing time I have in the game, no matter what the coaches say, that it totally doesn't affect you. But it sends a bad impression. And so if you're dependent to be on the field, if you're dependent on that for your own skills to improve, to hopefully get a college scout or a college scholarship through that way, to get an agent, college scout to look at you and maybe make an offer, like you need playing time. So of course you're going to want to be on the coach's good side. So anyway, there was a coercive element to this also. But basically, this guy did not return for his job, and then he eventually sued the Bremerton School District. And this is the case that over the course of several years, like court after court said, dude, what you're doing is wrong, and the district is right to say you can't do that because the end of a football game is not Jesus time just for you because you're a paid government employee at the time. You can't just use that to proselytize. And then, of course, because the right wing Supreme Court had the numbers, they're like, oh, we're totally taking on this case. And last summer, June of 2022, they voted 6-3 to reverse all the earlier decisions. And they said the school district had this wrong and this guy had it right. And they also said the school district needed to give him his job back, even though they never fired him. And they had to pay his attorney's fees, which at one point were like over $5 million. And they all negotiated it down to like $1.7 million that the district is now on the hook for. And they said, you have to let this guy back onto the team. He can be a coach again. So that takes us to last June. And by the way, when Neil Gorsuch wrote the majority's opinion in that one, I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said this guy just wanted to do a private prayer after the game, private Christian prayer. And Sonia Sotomayor in her dissent is like, here's a picture of the prayer. There's nothing remotely silent or quiet about this. There's a mass of people everywhere. It's a giant publicity stunt. So the facts did not matter in this case. They're just like it's like the uh, Christian website designer this year who's like, I just want to make websites for people, and gay people keep wanting me to make their wedding sites. And they're like, name a gay couple who wants you to make their wedding sites. And then you never heard from her again because it never happened that way. But they just make up the facts. The facts never match up what they're saying. And then, here we come to Joe Kennedy. So here's what happened after that Supreme Court decision came down, because this guy, Joe Kennedy, got everything he wanted, right? Well, in September of last year, so like the first football season after the Supreme Court verdict, the Seattle Times had a columnist write an article basically saying, "Where is this guy? He's like nowhere to be found." It looked like if you look at his daily schedule, he's not at practice in Bremerton, Washington. He's doing like right-wing fundraisers. Of course he is. It's like Kyle Rittenhouse or something. He's just being a conservative celebrity. He's not doing the job he wanted. He's not doing the job that the Supreme Court said he could do. So that's interesting. Um, but that was kind of the last time I heard about what he was up to. And then this past March, the school district basically said, look, whatever happened, we accept the results of the Supreme Court. The paperwork is now completed. He has gone through all the obstacles you have to go through to be a public school coach, and he's good. He's on the roster now. So starting the next season, which is now, he'll be back on the staff for the football team. I should also point out, Joe Kennedy has also had a ghostwriter write his memoir. It's called Average Joe, the Coach Joe Kennedy story, which is weird because I can't imagine there's anything about this guy I really care to read about other than the whatever few minutes he was on the football field a couple of times. There's also a movie in the works about this guy's life, and it's made by the God's Not Dead people. So they care about the facts. So this is what this guy's been up to. But anyway, oh, and here's the other thing. Here's the kicker. He moved away from Bremerton. He doesn't even live there anymore. Like a few years ago, before this was even in front of the Supreme Court, this guy and his wife moved to Florida, which is fine. He can move, he can go wherever he wants, but he's in Florida now. So the question was, even if the Supreme Court said he can have his job back, why the hell would he move back to Bremerton for a part-time like assistant coaching job that pays, I don't know, like $5,000, maybe a little more than that? You're going to upend your life in Florida to take this assistant coach job and not any other job? Like, you're not going to do that. What are you doing? But he won the case. School said, all right, he can come back if he wants. So here he is. And this brings us to what's really interesting now, because this story, as you could see from the headline, this is from Religion News Service, but I think it's the Associated Press here. Look at the headline. After years of fighting, a praying football coach got his job back. Now he's unsure he wants it, because of course he's unsure he wants it. This was never about coaching football. You think he cares about the student athletes? No, because if he did, he wouldn't have been praying at midfield, because that sort of gesture is, hey, look at me. I'm the most important guy here. Meanwhile, the quarterback of the team is like, I just threw the game winning pass. Oh, no one cares about me because I'm not important here. So interesting point in this article. It says he hasn't moved back to Bremerton. Let me see if I could pull this up for you. It says where does it say this? Here we go. He and his wife live in Florida now. He has been staying with a friend in Bremerton, and he doesn't know if he will keep coaching beyond Friday. So many people are asking, what's next? And I have no idea, Kennedy said. Do I stay for the season? Do I stay for a couple of games? Is this the only game? We don't know. So this guy is just what is it? He's renting a place, I believe. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. He is renting space. He is house sitting. He says he and his wife have talked about parking an RV on her sister's property in the area during football season. Which, okay, fine. You're there for a couple of weeks or months or something. It's a short term move. They're not looking for homes in the area because they don't give a shit about Bremerton anymore. They haven't sold their home in Pensacola, Florida. And then when it came to what are you going to do after Friday night's game, he's just not answering the question. He said he can't think further ahead than Friday, which is also weird because if you're a coach of any sort, you have to have a long term plan for the season. Like, what do you mean you're not looking past Friday? Your kids must be looking past Friday. They have a season trajectory here. But this guy's like, no, I just want to pray once so I can, like, relish the victory from the Supreme Court. Because all of that stuff, all of the legal fighting, it came down to let me get back on the field on school property where I'm a government employee and do a Christian prayer. That's what this is all about. That's what tonight is all about. And so he's finally going to be able to do that. And then guess what? Then when all the cameras start going away because they don't care about this guy anymore, he's going to be like, peace out, kids. You don't matter anymore. Because if he was like a good coach, he would be there for the long haul. He would be there for the whole season. And he's not making that commitment, not publicly. It's possible he sticks around for the next few months, but it also sounds like he's just saying, yeah, after today, when all of you stop writing articles about me, I'm just going to go back home and do my Rittenhouse thing or whatever. I'm just going to live my career as a Christian martyr, which he was not because he didn't give up anything really. Look, here's the thing. I say this as a guy who is a coach at a local high school for something. Like, the job is a sacrifice. You don't get paid that much. It takes a lot of time, but ask any coach who's worth their salary, their pennies. Like, you do it because you love the students. You do it because you appreciate the sport or the activity. You do it because what you get out of it is more valuable than a paycheck. That's why so many coaches put so much time and effort into that position. It's not the money. If you break it down like by an hourly salary, it's really sad. Don't ask me how I know that. Have I done the calculations? Not in a while, but have done it before. But the point is, like, you don't care about that stuff if you're doing this for the love of the game and the love of the students. This guy isn't doing that. His entire thing is he wants to advertise his religion. The kids are not his priority, and that hasn't changed since 2015. I should say the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I'm going to show you this right here. They are putting up this billboard. It's about 2 minutes outside of the high school, wishing Bremerton High School a safe, secular, and successful school year. Just to stick it to him, you know what I mean? Which is great. I mean, it capitalizes on the attention, good for FFRF, but it's also telling that the atheists in this story are focused on what's best for the students, while Joe Kennedy's main concern is himself, right? He's just trying to keep the attention on himself. Like, if he really cared about these students, here's what he should have done. I say this in complete seriousness. If he just wanted to take the win and then just bask in the glory. All he had to do is to say, I accept my victory with the Supreme Court. And I think if I came back onto the team, it would be a distraction to the students who deserve the attention. So I'm not going to do that as much as I want to be there. I'm going to stay home in Florida now. The kids and the coaching staff, they got it covered. They'll be fine without me. And you know what? I hope everyone says a silent prayer while I'm not there. He could have gotten away with that. It would have been perfectly fine, but he's not doing that. He wants the attention. And I guess, like, probably the movie needs an epilogue. So he wants to be there on the field after tonight's game. How funny would it be if they lose tonight's game? Like, blowout style. And then this guy has to march onto the field as the loser coach and just get out there and thank God for all the attention you're giving me. Just a wacky story, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating because tonight, the first football game of the Bremerton football team season, it should be about the kids. It should be It should be about the seniors. It should be about the students who are coming to watch a football game, but it's not. Like I've seen some articles that say there are going to be like 8 times as many people at the stadium tonight than normally would be at a football game. Why? Well, because of Coach Kennedy. Because they all want to see what happens at the end of the game, after the final whistle blows. Um, but that's the thing. Like the attention is not on the school or the students or the athletes or all the kids who just want to have a good time with their friends. It's all on one coach who is so insistent that all the attention be on him. That's the wrong way to coach. That's the wrong thinking if you're an adult who cares about kids, that it's all about you and not the kids themselves. So I don't know. I hope after tonight, then I hope he goes away. I hope he goes back to Florida and lives out his whatever dream career as a guy who like took advantage of a right wing court and let people find a way to shove religion into public schools somehow. Just a horrible way to begin a season. Imagine if you're a kid on that football team. Like, what do you do at that point? You got to join in the prayer because it's going to look bad if you don't. But I think I read an article somewhere that where one kid on the team is like, I don't think I want to be on the front page of tomorrow's papers. So I'm not going to join in to the prayer huddle afterwards. Just a messy situation.